Hey everybody, it's Nick, and in today's video, we're gonna make a Billie Eilish type beat in GarageBand. Billie's main producer is actually her brother, Phineas, and they've really managed to carve out their own unique sound, and we're gonna take a look at what kind of sounds we need to create that Billie Eilish type beat. All we'll need for this video tutorial is GarageBand, which is a free DAW, and is actually a really great starting DAW, streamlined, and just gives you the essential tools you need. We'll also need Splice Sounds, which you can sign up for a free trial at the top right of the screen. Let's open up GarageBand. Once you open GarageBand, let's just go ahead and hit Empty Project. We're not going to use a template. And there are three main types of tracks in GarageBand. There's the software instrument, which is going to be good for virtual instruments like your keys, your bass. You're not actually going to go get a bass guitar and record. In fact, you're just going to probably use GarageBand's virtual bass. The audio track is the other type of track, and that is for recording your own voice. If you want to record textural percussion or ideas, that's really good. This is also for recording actual instruments if you have an audio interface, such as a guitar or an electric bass. The last type of track is a drummer track. We're actually not going to use that too much in this video, but it can be very helpful for laying down ideas for rhythms and patterns, especially if you're not too familiar with drum patterns yourself. So let's actually start with a new audio track, and we're just going to go ahead, select the default track. Don't worry about the input because we're not going to record in this video, and we're just going to hit create. Now, a lot of these 4 on the floor genres are between 110 beats per minute and 130 beats per minute. So at the top, you'll see your tempo, and that's one of the most important things when creating a feeling of a song. So let's actually bump our tempo up by clicking and dragging to 126. The top part of GarageBand is where we're going to see our transport controls. These are global project controls where you can say stop the track, play the track, record if you want, or turn on looping. So these are like top level project controls. On the left-hand side is the library where you can find sounds and other instruments. And the main area, you're gonna find your arrangement window. At the very top are your measures, and these are important because this is kind of our unit of time that we mark everything off of. So a good starting point would be maybe 4 measures. To zoom in GarageBand, all you have to do is pinch to zoom. So I can pinch in, and I'm just gonna kind of pinch in so that I see maybe these first 4 measures here. So let's start getting in our first sounds. We'll go to splice.com/sounds, and under the instruments category here, we can then kind of filter down what kind of instrument. And I like starting with the kick drum because that is a driving force in a lot of these types of songs. So let's go ahead, go to the kicks. We'll do one shot, meaning it's only going to occur once. We don't want an actual pattern yet. We're going to make our own pattern. And for genres, let's do house because that's kind of the parent category. I can click on the playhead or use my arrow keys up and down. And we can use tags like analog to kind of filter the results so that we get maybe more of a softer sounding. I'm going to use this show similar, which will show me similar sounds to this one kick that I like. I really like this one. It's kind of clean and tight. So we're going to go ahead, download it using our 1 credit. On the right-hand side, you do need the Splice desktop application. So you can install that at splice.com/download. And once we have that, we can see under recently added, that is the kick we just downloaded. We're going to have all the samples used in this tutorial available to download so you can use the exact sounds that we're using, but we recommend you can also try using your own sounds. So the next step, we're going to drag the kick directly onto the timeline on our first track. And you just drag and drop from the Splice app. It's pretty straightforward. And once we have that there, I'm just going to shorten it a little bit by going to the back side of the region on the lower half and clicking and dragging to the left. The kick length we're going for is going to be going so that the kick goes from 1 to 1.2. So once you have your kick on the first beat, you can use spacebar to start and stop playback. I'm going to turn the metronome off here at the top right. If you hit return on your keyboard, it will always go back to the beginning. And once we have that first kick in there, we can use the upper half of the clip on the back side. Notice that that has that looping icon. Now if I click and drag that across, it will loop the kick. So let's get that for the first 4 measures. So you'll see the measure numbers here. We just want to kind of drag it. We should have 16 kicks total. Cool, we can loop this amount of time by clicking and dragging up where you see those measure numbers, which will turn on the loop icon, or C. If we hit C, that will turn on looping or cycling. So that's our kick. It's going 4 on the floor, where we go 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're gonna now add in what's called a backbeat, or something that accents every other beat. So we're gonna hit the plus, or if you wanna use a keyboard command, Command Option N for new track. And yes, we're gonna use another audio track. We can leave it on this first one here and hit create. Now we're gonna go back to Splice, go to browse, and actually I'm just gonna search the word snap up at the top. So this one sounds really organic and sounds kind of dry, which I think is really nice. We don't want too much reverb, so we're gonna go ahead, download this, and then maybe use that show similar to kind of find some other sounds that are like that. Kind of like that. It's kind of short. Let's see how we're gonna use that. I'm gonna get a few other kind of textural percussion by searching the term Foley. This will be any kind of textural sound or atmospheric or object sound that you might hear in film or other types of media. Like that little pressure suction slide sounds cool. I know that in Barry, a friend, she used a drill from her dentist. That's a nice little fun fact. Cool, those all sound good. Let's see how we can chop those up. So we're gonna go ahead to the Splice app now and find that snap. Click and drag it, and what we wanna do is line it up on the second kick, and if I hold Option and drag it, the fourth kick. If I highlight both of these, I can hold Option and drag it across. And Option drag's very powerful. This is how you can duplicate instances of either objects or devices in GarageBand and other DAWs and most music software. So now we have two elements. Let's start talking about mixing. And mixing really simply refers to the fact that we just have different volume levels for every different element in our track. So now that we have the kick and the snap, I'm gonna take the snap volume down here. Other important controls on the track here are the panning, which means how far left or right you're gonna make the sound. So here's far to the left and far to the right. Make sure you have your headphones when you're listening. And then we also have other controls like our solo and mute controls. Let's go ahead and add in 2 more audio tracks. So we're gonna do this twice, Command Option N. And let's get in some of those textural Foley or percussion sounds we heard. So this has a nice pump. Now let's talk about how we can sound design this a little bit. So one thing we can do is shorten it and chop it up. So I'm gonna shorten it from the back here and shorten from the front and just try to find what we call a transient or a peak in this audio waveform. A transient is anytime you see the top of an audio waveform when it gets to this highest point in amplitude. So maybe right here. So this kind of sounds interesting, unique, and I'm gonna actually do a little sound design in this fact that we're gonna now go to this track section. We're gonna go to the plugins here, and this is what we call our insert effects, or effects that are gonna change the sound on that track. So right now, if I solo this track, we've got this weird suction thing. And we're gonna go to the plugins here and try adding, well, first, here's our one plugin that is on. We can tell it's on because it's blue. And we're gonna go to the EQ here. We're gonna try to cut out the low end, and we're just gonna click on one of these, what's called an EQ node, and click and just drag it so that it's kind of only letting in the highs. So here's without the effect, and here's with the effect. And it leaves a lot more room for, say, the kicks. And now this almost sounds like scissors. I'm also gonna take the volume down, unsolo it. Let's hear how this sounds from the beginning. Hit enter or return. Let's go ahead and add in this other percussion Foley sound. So we're just gonna take this in, and I'm just gonna find, remember, use the bottom half of the clip to kind of crop it down to where you want. I'm gonna find one of these transients that sound fun. If I click up here in right below the measures, I can start playback from where I want. That sounded kind of nice. So we have. So I'm going to then highlight both of these, hold Option, and simply just drag it so that it's in the same spot over here. Actually, that's a little too far over. I'm going to go over here. The next thing we're going to do is just go ahead, pan the effects kind of left and right. So I'm going to pan this one to the left, pan this one to the right, and take the volumes down a little bit because they're not as important as the primary drums, which so far are the kick and the snap that's outlining the backbeat. All right, so now that we have some of the drums, let's go ahead and try to add in a bass line to inspire us a little bit more. So we're gonna go ahead, hit this plus icon, and this time we are gonna actually use a software instrument. We're not gonna, go get a bass instrument, and I kind of wanna make my own bass line, and I'm gonna show you now how to use what's called piano roll or MIDI. So let's go ahead and use the software instrument, hit create, and notice by default it's this electric piano. And we're gonna go ahead, I'm actually going to go to the synthesizer category and go within that, the bass subcategory. That'll actually be better. Let's start with the top one and put in some notes, and then we can decide what sound we like best. So to put in MIDI notes, or what we call piano roll, all you have to do is right-click where you want in the timeline. So I'm going to right-click right here at the beginning, say Create Empty MIDI Region, and notice it is one measure at first. We can expand it right here at the bottom to make it say like a 2-measure phrase or 4-measure phrase right off the bat. Let's start with 2 measures. Double click on the clip, and then you're gonna now see piano roll at the bottom of the screen. And I'm gonna use this brace here to just kind of expand the window a little bit. A really good key for beginners, if you're not familiar with scales and keyboard, is what's called A minor. And to find that, all you have to do is find C, which is marked here, and go down 2 white notes, because that's C, this is considered B, and then A. Now I can already tell this bass is a little too bright for, a Billie Eilish type beat, so we're gonna go ahead and find something a little warmer. How about this one, deep sub bass? Yeah, that one sounds nicer. It's a little warmer tone. So yeah, this deep sub bass instrument's gonna work well. We'll find C and go down 2 steps, and if I hold Command, I can then now put in the pencil mode and single click notes in. If you double click on that note, it will delete it. A lot of these bass lines sound really good when you kind of syncopate it. We're gonna do A minor, so we're just gonna focus, like this is our home bass, this note right here, and all the white keys are still in the scale. So this is 1, we'll think maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, and that's 1 again. So a good bass line could be like focusing maybe between 1, maybe up to 3, 4. You don't have to go to too many notes. So let's just see how this would sound. Just 1 here. Now this is 3 spaces away. It's called syncopated. That might be too much and too soon. And you can use your ear, trial and error it, but I think this will sound nice right here. And then I'm gonna put it up what's called a third. So I'm gonna hold Command and then put in a note right here. And that's skipping up a note to the third, back to the 1. This is considered the 7. Again, we're going 1, 7, 6, 5. So again, like this is just wrapping around 1. And maybe continue this upbeat, or where we don't play with the kick. Notice the bass is kind of talking to the kick rather than talking with the kick. And then I kind of hear it again. Yeah, Yeah, that's kind of nice. It has a good energy. What we can do is we'll option drag this across, and then we'll throw in a variation this second time. Maybe come up the scale. Let's hear that at the end. I'm going to play with this last, what we call walk up the bass line, and start using some black notes, or what we call maybe chromatic passing tones. Basically, these are not in the home bass scale, but can be used to add quick tension. And let's go ahead and highlight all this time here, and then we're going to use option and just drag it so that we have another phrase here. Zoom out. And let's actually do it so that we have 4 of these phrases total. So that's what you're going to notice. A lot of times you start an idea with maybe 4 measures, even 2 measures, even 1 measure. Build kind of down and up, where you layer and stack things up on this short idea, and then expand it out once you have a few nice layers. And I'm going to remove the kick from the very beginning. So at measure 9, let's go ahead, throw in a variation. What we'll do is we'll copy the main notes here. We'll hit Command A, Command C for copy, but we'll go ahead, put in a new MIDI region, make it 2 measures as well, double click, and then once we're in this empty MIDI region, we can paste the line here, Command V. We'll then highlight that new region here at 9 and use Option arrow key up or down to shift the notes one, what we call semitone, or 1 step up or down. And we're going to actually go where this is starting on what we call D. So this is C, D. And we're going to put it right there. So it sounds, now going into this. That way we have a nice variation where it kind of goes up and down. So we'll use these 4 units now as the phrase. I'm going to option drag that, highlight all this time here. And if I take away some of the kicks like I'm doing here, that's what's called maybe a subtractive fill. And we'll just simply just click and drag that so that there's some space at the end of the phrase. So we're going to try to find, for measure 13, some kind of upbeat hi-hat sound. Command Option N, and then do new audio track here, hit create. And what we'll do is take in that shaker and put it on measure 13, and we're going to put it in the upbeat. So we're going to zoom in here, and it's going to sound like this. We're going to put it right here. Upbeat is across from the kick, or halfway between each kick, if you think about that. And that's a little aggressive. So what we're going to do is we're going to high pass it. We're using the channel EQ here. Again, take in maybe one of these notes here. And let's just take it down in volume because it doesn't need to be too loud. And what we'll do is hold Option and just drag it so that we have 4 of them, and then highlight those 4 and do the same thing. Let's add in a little bit of reverb on this so it's a little less dry. And what we can do is go into this chooser, go to reverb, and just use Nverb. Reverb or reverberation is a term that simply refers to how sound decays in an environment. Like when you clap in a large stadium versus maybe a small bathroom. How does that clap sound in those 2 different environments? So we're going to use this Nverb to kind of make the upbeat element a little more unique. Let's just try to find a few more unique effects sound. So we'll go to the instruments category. We'll go to effects in the Splice app. We'll go for one shots, and let's just find some unique sounds. kind of like that door opening, so we'll try to get that in there. So one really great technique for sound design is reversing a sound. To do that, just double click on the sound here and then use the reverse playback option, and that will really kind of create a new sound. And we'll use that kind of going right into the kick. So I'm going to drag it right so it's right there. And shorten it so it kind of ends. Again, we don't want it too loud. This will be a good thing to maybe pan. I'm just going to do this. All right, so let's take a listen to what we came up with. Great, so those were the basic steps to start getting a Billie Eilish type beat in GarageBand. A few next steps would be to arrange it out a little bit more, add some transition sounds, maybe have the drums drop out completely a little bit, and definitely maybe add like a catchy melody. But you have to keep in mind that the voice is gonna be the main element on this type of track. And especially with Billie Eilish's production, you know, the way she processes her vocals is really unique. The way she does those growl sounds, you know, that could be its own tutorial in itself, but you just always have to imagine when you're producing these type beats and beats for artists in general, what their voice is gonna bring to it, and you don't wanna overcomplicate things. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We'll be releasing more production videos and tutorials weekly. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of your day, and as always, thanks for watching. I'll see everybody next time.